At 16, I was told, quite frankly, to have my children before I was 21, because every year after that, I would struggle. Yeah, so I was diagnosed with endometriosis when I was 16.
If someone told me that you need to have your child, before the age of 21, especially at the age of 16, you're technically still a child.
I had severe period. Ended up having many keyhole surgeries to clear the endometriosis, and I spent all my 20s on a drug called danazol to stop my monthly cycles, basically, throughout my 20s. It brought on a menopausal state, so you'd go through the hot flushes and then you'd go through the feelings and the emotional roller coaster with.
So you had like menopause at the age of...
Yes, I believe my first one was 19. I was stuck at home for a few months because it didn't really go very well. And during that time being at home, something happened inside of me. Every time I saw a baby on the TV or saw my friends' children, I'd start getting quite emotional.
So, welcome to the podcast, Tracey. It is an honor to have you. Just to get started with, I would want you to let the world know why you are today. Why did you choose the path of healing people from inside about your emotional struggles?
Yeah, thank you for having me to start with. It was a choice that just happened naturally for me, and because of the struggles that I had back 15, 16 years ago, I naturally started to learn about how I was dealing with it, because I hadn't dealt properly with it when I was going through the issues and problems. And it felt very natural then that when I started learning more about myself and learning how I was behaving within the information that I was given, it was quite a natural process for me, if I'm honest with you. I'm naturally quite a driven person. And as I started to learn this work and started to understand how the mind works, how behaviours are linked to the emotional roller coasters, my brain just started lighting up. And now, I would say 15 years on, we've delivered our programs to over 5,000 individuals and teams, and I've personally coached about 900 hours of coaching, and it's been an incredible journey. Now I can see that.
And what made you start your journey? Was there like some sort of personal experience you have?
Yeah.
Or,
Yes.
because generally when someone gets into this career, right, into this field of healing, of coaching, there is some story that is behind it. So we would love to know what was your story and
Yeah, that's so
what was
true.
the reason behind it. You said you had some struggles, you had some early struggles on with
Endometriosis,
endometriosis.
yes.
So can you please tell us all about it, all the way from the very start, how it began?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with endometriosis when I was 16. That was back in, 91, 92, I believe it was. And my mother had it as well. And she was fortunate. She'd had me and my sister by the time she was 20, 21, and had ended up having a hysterectomy herself when she was 30. Now, roll on 30, 40 years on, and we are still no much further looking for a cure for people. I believe when my mum had it back in the 70s, there was 1 in 100 people that suffered with it.
Okay.
We are now 1 in 10 women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and there is still no proper diagnosis. It's endometriosis. When I was diagnosed at 16, I was told, quite frankly, to have my children before I was 21, because every year after that, I would struggle. So at 16, it was not a position I really thought I wanted to be in. I wasn't in a proper relationship or anything. I was young. I was only out of school. I had severe period pains, and my monthly cycle would come around. I thought to start with that I had a very low pain threshold, and now I know I've got quite a high pain threshold.
Okay.
So now I understand how painful it can be. And it's inflammation within the pelvic area. So it's part of your uterus that sort of grows outside of the uterus, and it grows and attaches itself to other parts of the body. So when we do end up having our monthly cycle, it can be quite painful for a lot of women.
And how did you react? Because this is not something normal. Like any woman, say for instance, now I'm almost 30, and if someone told me that you need to have your child, before the age of 21, especially at the age of 16,
16,
you're
yes.
technically still a child. You don't know anything about the world yet, and it's just put on you that you need to have a child. I mean, what was your first reaction to that?
Yeah, I think I just buried it, if I'm honest with you. I put it in the back of my mind, which I now realise it is quite a habit of myself that I can bury things and I can just suppress emotions. So I just went along and put it in the back of my mind, but ended up having many keyhole surgeries to clear the endometriosis. But what we were finding that every 2 to 3 years it would come back. So I think I've had about 9 different keyhole operations, quite large operations as well in between that. And I spent all my 20s on a very on a drug called danazol to stop my monthly cycles basically throughout my 20s. At that time, the doctors thought that that was the best way for me, but it brought on a whole host of other symptoms as a result of it. So I'd gone through, I suppose, 3 menopausal states. It brought on a menopausal state. So you'd go through the hot flushes and then you'd go through the feelings and the emotional roller coaster with it. So that happened about 3 times in my 20s, plus the surgical.
So you had like menopause at the age of. Oh wow! Like,
Yes, I think I believe my first one was 90.
no, oh no,
18,
that
19,
that's
yes.
that's quite young, because generally, like, people when they are approaching their 20s, they're more focused on your career. And
Yes.
I mean, I cannot imagine someone going through this phase at that point. How did it impact your career? Because you're fresh out of school.
Yes,
So, do you think that it had a bad impact on your career, or you wanted to do something because of, the operations, you could not do it?
yeah, I believe for me, I was quite lucky. I didn't allow it to impact my career, my day to day life, even though some days I would be quite sick and be quite poorly, but I would always show up. I'm a very driven person. I always had a great physical health. I kept my body strong. And that was one thing that I could also advise other women. I was living and breathing it. So I knew when your diet was healthy, when your body was strong, it helped with the painful symptoms. But one key area that came out of my learnings post endometriosis and post fertility was that my mind wasn't strong. And that for me has been the biggest learning, and hence why now I want to pass those top tools and tips on to other people, because learning that once your mind is strong, you can just tackle so many other things. So on a day-to-day basis, I was okay. But I just felt at that point I'd learned to keep the body strong, but we weren't really taught about how to keep the mind strong. It wasn't spoken about in the 90s, and you just had to get on with it, to be honest with you. And I suppose many people listening to this can relate to it, because I just couldn't take much time off, because I knew once I'd have the keyhole surgery, I would need to take time off work then. So I would take about a week, 2 weeks off every time I'd have surgery. But most of the time, you just had to find ways to get on with it. I would go to work. Some days I'd come back from work and I would literally put my bag down, walk up the stairs and go straight to bed, because that was the only way I could deal with it.
And did you try seeking some sort of professional help?
Not at that time. And again, in the 90s, it wasn't really, there was therapy, different therapies out there. I did try EFT, emotional freedom technique, at the time. For me, my mind was quite active. It was a very busy, busy mind. So I don't believe that I actually took on board how powerful the EFT could be as well. So emotional freedom technique is a form of tapping. I did have acupuncture, so that sort of helped as well.
So, you knew that you would have issues in your children, like in conceiving, correct?
Yes.
After your diagnosis. So, then how did you deal with something like that? I want to understand in this that what is the possibility of conceiving after
Endometriosis, yes.
endometriosis.
Yes.
What are your chances of conceiving in that?
That's a difficult one for people to assess and monitor it. They do believe that with women with endometriosis, the fertility problems can be up to 50%. But the success rates, they don't really know too much about the success rates if you do go down the fertility route. For me, I understand that the longer you leave it, the harder it can get. And that's, again, up to an individual person. With endometriosis, there's still research out there. It's not curable at the moment. And like I say, 1 in 10 women, we understand now that women are having a lot more fertility issues and problems in 2025, 26. But we still don't understand the root cause of endometriosis and the high risks that it can take with fertility, but it is up to about 50% fertility problems.
And is there any sort of precaution you can take to avoid it?
Not with endometriosis. There is no, it can take up to 7.5 years for people to be diagnosed with it. There's a few people come out recently who's in the media space. One famous singer came out and she said it took 10 years for them to diagnose it. I struggle with this, if I'm honest with you, when we know now that 1 in 10 women suffer from it. The symptoms are there. It is pelvic inflammatory as well, but it impacts a lot of other things too.
Okay. So tell us more about your marriage. You said you never wanted children, was it?
Well, my husband at the time didn't want children, and when we met, I was quite happy with that because I'd put it in the back of my mind. And I think I tricked myself into thinking I can't have children because by the time we'd met, I was nearly 30. So I put it at the back of my mind. And a couple of years later, I had one of my keyhole surgeries. It didn't go to plan. And I was stuck at home for a few months because it didn't really go very well. And during that time being at home, something happened inside of me. Every time I saw a baby on the TV or saw my friends' children, I'd start getting quite emotional. And I didn't know where that was coming from, but I understand that I think I'd buried the thought of having children because I didn't want to go through that heartache. So I sat my husband down and I said, I think I want children. And he said, if that wasn't in the agreement, he said, I didn't want to have a child. So a few months had gone by and the feelings were getting stronger. So we sat one evening and I said, I don't want to hit 70, wondering what if. I understand that it wasn't what you signed up for neither, but I want to go down this road and I want to go down this road with you. But I understand if you don't want to come with me. And he spent some time thinking about it and agreed that he wanted to go down the journey with me. And then we ended up going for fertility treatment then as well.
How did that go?
That not successful. We went through 6 rounds. We started on Clomid, which is an enhanced drug, and I thought we'd try that. We had 2 rounds of the Clomid, and then we ended up having 6 rounds of fertility treatment. So we had 4 rounds of IUI and then 2 rounds of IVF. And at the end of that treatment, after the 6th one, we were told, no, it's not going to happen. So the IVF process, it's whoever's been through it, who is listening to this, they'll understand that it is not an easy process. It's an emotional roller coaster from start to finish. And when we were going through it about 15 years ago, I don't believe that there was pieces missing where we could have had some more support. I feel that where we could just understand the process a lot more. I tried to shelter my husband from a lot of it because we're back and forwards from the hospital a lot. What I found quite bizarre at the time was the IUI clinic was on the entrance of the maternity ward. So every time we went up for treatment, we would see the newborn babies. And also at the time, the scanning machines were down in the main entrance of the hospital. And I remember vividly, and it's in my book as well, that I was sat in one of my appointments and the appointment ran an hour late. Went in to see my consultant and he said to me, you don't look okay today, Tracey, you all right? And I just burst out crying because I said to him, I've sat in a room with 16 women coming in and out, going for their scans, all happy, different groups of people coming in, different groups of people going out, and I'm just sat there watching all this, and it was just too much at that time. So I asked him if there was any way that we could just put some chairs around the corner, so there was an option for women like myself going through this treatment, that if we didn't feel strong one day, that we could actually go and sit somewhere else, which it was just dismissed, to be honest with you. And then we started the IVF treatment, and again, that was a huge emotional roller coaster. And with IVF, they ring you every 6 to 7 hours to let you know how the eggs are growing. And I remember our last one, vividly remember the last one, thinking, right, this is it now, this is our last attempt. And we had about 9 eggs on that last one, which was good for us. And we lost 2 overnight. And then every time the clinic would ring, they'd say that we've lost another one overnight, we've lost another one this afternoon. And I remember we got to Friday, and there was 4 there, and the 4 were doing quite well at that time. So the clinic said to us, right, go home, relax, just spend the weekend, just have a quiet weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday. We will not ring you over the weekend, but if something drastic happens, we'll ring. So we went home. Saturday morning came, 6:30 a.m, and my mobile phone was ringing, London Clinic on the screen.